Yeah. Welcome back, everyone, to our 16th session, I believe, on studying the 26th word of the words by Imam Said Nursi, rahimahullah. This treatise is on divine determining, or Qadar, and last week we finished up the conclusion and we started the addendum. So once we're done with the addendum, we'll be done with our study of Qadar for now. Of course, it's a lifelong practice, but uh, I'm hoping for myself and for all of you that we're taking what we're learning in the halaqah to the rest of the week, and you can use this session to share some of those personal reflections from your week, inshallah. So I'll just go over the parts of the addendum that we read. So if you guys remember, we talked about different paths which lead to God. And although Imam Nursi said all the true ways are taken from the Quran, some of them are shorter, safer, and more general than others. So in the addendum, he is going to show us a shorter and safer way to get to knowledge and love of God, inshallah. And this way that he's going to describe is the way of impotence. Another way to understand is powerlessness, poverty, compassion, and reflection. So this is Shafka, right? Ishrabla. You're here, and Dr. Mina's here. And reflection is tafakkur. So ajz, fakr, shafkat, tafakkur. And these four take us to different names of God from the beautiful names. So he gives an example of, some of the Sufi orders. Shafaka, that's right. Okay, Shafaka. Some of the Sufi orders, for example, focus on the divine name of loving and winning God's love. And in this way that he's going to describe, the impotence, the powerlessness, and poverty will lead to the name All Merciful. The compassion one will lead to the All Compassionate, and reflection will lead to All Wise. So this is kind of the goal. And we had these verses that are kind of lampposts, I guess, on this path. So I'll read the verses again, and then we'll go over the first part of this addendum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. The verse, therefore, do not justify yourselves, points to the first step. The verse, and be not like those who forget God, and he therefore makes them forget their own selves, points to the second step. The verse, whatever good happens to you is from God, but whatever evil befalls you is from yourself, points to the third step. The verse, everything will perish save his countenance, points to the fourth step. And then last week we read the first step of the four. Before I get there, something that he had said and we kind of talked about was this path that he's explaining. He said it is reality rather than a tariqah, and it is Sharia. So Dr. Yamina had highlighted here that there is a inner aspect of reality, and this is actually what we want to focus on or get access to. And she said this, and I didn't know about this. Sharia originally means path leading to a source of water or water, and this is obviously a source of life or the source for life. So I really like this kind of imagery that the knowledge of God that we gain is the source of life for us.
And if I can just add a footnote, I think what Dr. Yamina also had in mind was a revision to the traditional Sufi understanding. It is not to put it down, it has its own, value, but in the traditional Sufi understanding, it it is like a circle, and that is the outer circle that's called Sharia, and then in the middle of the circle it's the core haqiqa, and then tariqa is like the radius from the Sharia to the haqiqa, that you from the Sharia through the tariqa you get to the heart of the matter, the kind of the inner core. So in that kind of scheme, Sharia seems to be a bit the outer level of things. And definitely one could go through practices and do's and don't do's in that external kind of more surface level, and it happens all the time. But what Dr. Yamina was saying is that actually, if you understand Sharia for real, Sharia is that takes you to haqiqa. Sharia is haqiqa. It's not an outer shell that is a bit different from what is the core. The real Sharia is the core. So that's why Imam Nursi is here saying it's haqiqa rather than tariqa, and it's Sharia too, which kind of reverses the traditional understanding of Sharia being the outer shell and haqiqa being the core, the inner aspect. It's just a footnote, but I wanted that.
No, I think that that's really helpful, Isra, and it goes along with the conversation we had on the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where we talked about living with Tawheed being the first and foremost, Sunnah of the Prophet. So living with Iman and Ihsan is how the Prophet lived, and this is like what we need to follow to understand how we can know, follow, obey, love our Creator. So in that discussion too with the Sunnah, we said that the inside and outside, like the outward Sunnah will nourish the inner aspect and vice versa. So I think those are kind of like similar concepts. Okay, so the first one was do not justify yourselves, or the verse about this. And we talked about how so this means, don't make excuses, or the kind of saying here is not to purify the soul, just meaning don't defend or make excuses for the ego, for the nafs. And we talked about how we love ourselves. We're always looking out for ourselves. We love justifying ourselves. Whenever we do something wrong, it's born out of a good intention, a misunderstanding, a harmless mistake. But when others do it, it's never like that. So the first step here was not justifying ourselves in this way.
If I can just add here, this week there were several times, or at least once, that this came to mind, and it was helpful because initially when we read, it felt a bit harsh on my ego. I mean, my ego thought it was a bit harsh, or it is hard to constantly remember and take responsibility, as it were. But then it actually is very relieving because you don't have to keep trying to maintain a false image of being perfect or, always, being excusable even when you have a mistake. So there were some moments this week that I felt like the typical move for like how everybody's unfair, unjust, and I misunderstood this and that. And then for at least once, I was like, wait a second, I don't have to be um, this all powerful, all perfect thing, connected with the idea that ajz and weakness is part of a core part of this path. It's okay. I am extremely needy and weak, and it's okay um, if I'm not this false image that I'm trying to maintain. It's actually easier to ask for forgiveness and admit my mistake before my creator than to constantly fight for the ego. And in my notebook here, I glanced at a note from a couple of weeks ago, I think. Dr. Yamina said, it's not about me, it's about God.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a good reminder, helpful here.
It's such a shift, right? Because we keep talking about the beautiful names, and Dr. Yamina had said we can't focus or witness the beautiful names if we're only focusing on ourselves, basically. Like, I'm not going to see the beautiful names if all I'm talking about is me, 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 me. Right, so the last part here is even using on himself the members and faculties given him as part of his nature in order to praise and glorify the true object of worship, he displays the meaning of the verse, who takes as his God his own desires. He considers himself, he relies on himself, he fancies himself. Thus, his purification and cleansing at this stage in the step is to not purify himself, it is not to absolve himself. Actually, during a Saturday session at the Innate Center, there were some passages that Dr. Yamina read from another part of the Risale-i that is a perfect example to this, where we're told, we're given all these members and faculties, talents, skills, abilities as a human being, and they're given to us in order to praise and glorify the true object of worship. I am made to see, I'm given eyes so that, I can bear witness in a certain way, so that my eyes, the act of seeing itself, can bear witness to the all-seeing one, to the absolute creator, right? Everything, like even from the most physical to the most abstract thing I can think of, the ability to reason, the ability to empathize, all of these things that we love to take ownership of, they are given to us and they're being constantly created in us so that they can bear witness, they can be a sign that, look, there is someone who is making you see, there's someone who's making you understand, someone who's letting you speak, put word after another word to make meaningful speech. Like, even though to you it feels like, oh, I've been able to speak since I was 2, no, someone's been making you speak. And yet, all of those abilities, skills, faculties that I'm given, in order to praise and glorify my maker, I'm actually using on myself, right? And then he's saying that in itself is displaying the meaning of this verse, who takes as his God his own desires. So I can reason really well, I can make a really good argument. What am I using those arguments for? To justify my own actions, to find loopholes, to allow me to do things as I like. So even here, right, like Israel was saying, the first step seems really harsh. Nobody wants to say, oh, I'm not an egoist. I don't love myself like that. But even that initial resistance is proof that I am justifying myself as I am defending myself there. He considers himself, he relies on himself, he fancies himself. Thus, his purification and cleansing at this stage, in this step, is to not purify himself. It is not to absolve himself. Okay. So first step of this path is to stop purifying ourselves. And I think if we remember the beginning of the treatise, the 26th word, one thing that we kept coming back to, and we need to keep coming back to, is this idea that whatever good is happening, it's not for me, right? That was like, if I understand that as the basis of my reality, everything's gonna change. Anything good, even the simplicity of swallowing my food or being able to drink my water, all of those things, they're not coming from me. I'm not in control. I'm not creating the action. I'm not creating the digestion. I'm not creating the sense of taste, any of those things. So once I get there, then I think like this step will be a little easier, but it's kind of a work in progress. Okay, so this week we'll start reading the second step. But before we do that, I'll open it up for any reflections, comments, questions. So if you've been thinking about Qadar as it applies to your life over the last week or what we've talked about in the first step, please share. And if not, we'll go to Dr. Yamina and then we'll start reading, inshallah. Okay. You can also write in the chat if you'd like to share. And Dr. Yamina, would you like to add anything before we start the second step?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum.
Let's carry on, and then each time we can go back and how the steps are related to the faqr and ajz and shafaqa and tafakkur. We need to make that connection, inshallah.
Oh, okay, that's a good note. Okay. For this first one, first step, is it the powerlessness that is relating to?
It's both faqr and ajz, because we have needs, and the needs are the key to experience and become aware of the beautiful names of God. Before the beautiful names of God, it's what makes us realize that we are being taken care of. So we realize Rububiyyah in general. And then as we learn to reflect, tafakkur, then we can connect to the source of the beautiful names of God. But the needs on their own, if we had some power, some control, we would not prostrate before our Rabb. But because at the same time, we are totally powerless, we cannot take care of our needs, our control is very limited. Actually, it's not, but in our illusion, it's limited. So even at the beginning, when we are not totally aware of the reality, we realize that it's limited. So all of them are related, because first it's an awareness, but this awareness is going to we will be anchored in this awareness. It will internalize, it becomes our reality, to the extent that we are also reflecting with the heart on our reality, which is needs and total no power, no control. And this is something that we need to live with and experience and taste. And so it becomes not easy. It becomes like all this is reminding us of the source. So our life won't be an obstacle or a distraction to the reality, to our connection, to our Rabb, but on the contrary, everything will become a reminder and a teacher and a messenger and a source of good news. So it's not something we'll run away from, but something we'll look forward to. But in the beginning, where we don't accept this reality, we have not made the decision and the choice to intend to surrender. That's why the surrender is the beginning of everything. It will be, in the beginning, it's not a full surrender, but it's the intention to surrender that will start the journey. The moment we choose to surrender, then it will become easy to practice what we are taught in the Quran, what our Rabb is teaching us. And this is the best thing that can happen to us. Otherwise, the ego wants to run away, and that's why we keep learning, we keep reading, we keep talking, and then we keep forgetting. No, it's not because we don't know that we forget, because we didn't make that decision. That decision needs to be renewed day in, day out, day in, day out, until that's it. It becomes our way of life, our new habit of being. We won't be living from the ego, so we won't have, or let's say, the inclination to run away from the reality will diminish. It won't hurt because we will be feeding the heart and the soul. And as we are feeding the heart and the soul, the ego may be still doing its stuff, but it's not the one in power, in control in our life anymore, and less in control. And the heart and the soul, they long for being in the presence of God, for knowing that we are being taken care of, that we are not orphans, we're not aliens in this world. We are the guests of this beautiful, generous host who is our Rabb.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, love that. Thank you, Dr. Mina. Tisnia, you had your hand up. Did you want to say something?
Yes, I had a question sort of relating to this, and if this has already been answered, I apologize if I'm asking again. I think, this aspect of like running away and this need to perhaps be in control has been this theme that has been coming up. And I think for me, I guess I'm just pausing with this discomfort that I feel in terms of like, so I have like, I see in front of myself, I have a couple of paths that I can take in terms of a decision that I want to, or that I'm being called to make. But for me, like, I need ease. But I feel like each of the paths in its own way doesn't have total ease, but that's maybe what I'm looking for. And so I made like a pros and cons list, right, for each of each of these paths that I if I take it, like, these are potential pros and potential cons.
Which are
And
the paths? Sorry?
I'm sorry?
Which are these two paths?
So like a decision for my son, right, in terms of putting him in a particular program.
Oh, okay.
And I've made like pros and cons, but like, because those decisions will not just affect him, but it will affect us as a family. and I need ease. Like I'm seeking that, but I feel very unsettled and anxious because each of the paths is not total ease. There's hardships in different ways. So I'm trying to understand what that means. And then when I feel like I can't, maybe I'm trying to understand with the ego or my mind, like I feel like I want to run away because I don't know what decision to make. And I'm having a hard time, how do I say it, surrendering, because I feel like I need to make a decision. I don't know if that makes sense.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I'm wondering if I can share on the same in decision making. So I revert back to the sunnah of doing istikhara prayer, 2 rakat, and the dua, and do that continuously for a week and basically put it back in Allah's court. And I find ease after doing that with whichever path. And then if it works out, it's great, alhamdulillah. If it didn't work out, then I feel, okay, I did ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he guided me to this. So then I'm more accepting of whatever the outcome is. So I have an issue, decision making, and istikhara is the only way I feel that I can feel at peace with my own decision making, which I obviously don't trust now. And when I was younger, it was like snap, snap, snap. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing that. Now, as I'm getting older, it's like harder to make decisions. And so istikhara, we talked about living the sunnah, and that is one of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So I would encourage everyone in making decisions it is consulting God. If you look at the dua, it's like you are all knowing, you are all powerful, you are all hearing. If this is the right path for me, then make it easy for me, for my deen, dunya and akhirah. And if it's not, then keep me away from it and keep me happy in my deen, dunya and akhirah, and find me the alternative, which is pleasing to him. So that's what I recommend in situations like this for myself and anybody else who has difficulty making decisions and accepting their own decision. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair, both of you. Tasnia, did I understand you right? Like, were you saying the problem with surrender is you have to make a choice, so surrendering makes it hard because maybe making a choice feels like not surrendering, or what?
So making a choice, like, because each of the choices in my limited perception obviously has hardship in different ways, right? And perhaps I'm seeking like complete ease, and it's like I feel like, well, none of these paths feel like it's going to be the ease that I'm wanting or needing. And maybe that's that everlastingness that perhaps I'm looking for that obviously I can't find here. So I think I think there's a part of me that's also like, I've been making istikhara, I've been doing a lot of duas, and still there's like maybe an aspect of me feeling like, well, what if, like, I don't know, like, I feel like, what if I guess it's the ego, right? Like, still thinking that it's a choice that I am making rather than like, Qadar, because I feel like, what if I make the wrong choice and then the outcome isn't good? And I think the fear of that like makes me sort of just like kind of like I feel like I get stuck, and then that's when I'm like, I want to run away because I'm like, I'm just afraid of making a wrong choice. I'm afraid of like the unknown. And then even when I do my pros and cons list, I'm like, there's good and quote unquote not so good in each of the choices. So this, I guess it goes back to like me wanting to be in control of the outcome and just consistently being reminded that I'm not in control of the outcome, which is why then I get like afraid to make a decision, or like it's like this whole twisted sort of way of kind of like mind that I'm in. And so I'm I'm seeking like how can I be at ease when I don't know, it's just I'm like anxious about it, clearly. And then I go down this rabbit hole of like, maybe I don't have faith in the way I'm meant to have faith, you know? So anyways, that's just kind of where I am.
So, in general, only in paradise there is no things are good without any hardship or any shortcomings. But in this life, everything has a good and a bad. And we want the one that has more good. The second one is we have A and B, but we don't know if there is a C. We are that limited. Maybe there is a third way that is better than both. So we need to be open to another unknown possibility. And then what matters in this is, again, whenever we find ourselves in any, actually it should be constantly, but especially when there is something that we need to make a decision or something that attracts our attention, are we in relationship, horizontal relationship with the rest of the world, or are we in a vertical relationship? So if I'm in a vertical relationship, I am a abd. I am a receiver of rububiyyah. I am being created. I am being put in this position. And my first response, my first reaction is to go back to my Rabb. My Rabb is putting me in this situation not to make things hard for me. It's always an opportunity to grow in Iman, to grow in closeness to God, to get ready for Akhirah. So if I am in the horizontal, whatever I do, it's always going to be the fear will never end. Because deep down, we all know that however much I want to control things, eventually I'm not in control. And however much I may calculate everything, something may go amiss along the way. So there will be always that fear and anxiety and being unsettled and feeling helpless. And we try to cover it up with other things. But if I remember and ground myself in that moment, Alhamdulillah, I have a Rabb. My God is in control, and He's putting me here. Whatever the outcome of what I do right now, it always has to go back to something that makes me close to God. Remembering this itself is going to make me close to God. So, but I feel fear. Okay, I feel fear. My fear is telling me, seek help. And that's what we do in all the prayers. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. You alone we worship, and from you alone we seek help. So if I have fear, it means I have a need for help. So I So I ask help. Sorry, excuse me, I'll just close the door. So I'll ask help from my Rabb. And istikhara is the way we've been taught to embody that seeking help. So I'm seeking help, I'm asking help, as Zubaydah shared in the text. We're asking God to make whatever is easy, make it easy in life, in real life, make it easy and make me ease my path towards what is better, because I don't know and you know. And so I'm making istikhara with that awareness, with that need for help, need for guidance. And I surrender, I submit, I am following your guidance. That's what matters. At the end of the day, I sincerely, I'm looking at my heart, I want to follow whatever I feel is what my Rabb is guiding me to. If I got it right, my perception, my interpretation of the perception is correct, I will get double reward. If I missed something, I will still get the reward. Why? Even if actually it was not the best decision, I will get the reward because my intention was to follow divine guidance for me. And if my intention is always to follow divine guidance, even in between, I am in the beginning, I'm not good at reading the signs and I miss something, I will be redirected, because we are always redirected, but we are not always paying attention to the divine guidance. So our primary concern is not the outcome, which was his best, because I can't know which one is best. My concern is, am I intending to follow divine guidance? That's my focus. And that's what istikhara is, one embodiment of this. I am waiting for divine guidance. Please ease me on the path of ease. Why do I want the path of ease? Because Allah made us long for ease. Not it's me who wants ease. And where am I going to find ease? You made me desire ease, so I surrender and I trust that you will guide me to the best that is available. So that's and if I have fear and if I have hope, it is fear of not following divine guidance, fear of missing, fear of relying again on my ego as I'm used to. That's why we make istighfar all the time. And if my intention is this, even when I miss and I go to my old habits, I will be reminded again and again, because I'm renewing my intention again and again, inshallah. So the ease is in handing over everything to God, to my Rabb here and now, and trusting Him.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Yamina. Inshallah, Zubaydah and Tasniya, that was relevant to your question. I mean, that answered your question, or gave you something to think about. Israbla, I saw your hand raised. Did you want to say something?
I appreciate what Dr. Yamina has just shared. I think, yeah, it's very helpful to hear about arts, like connecting it back, tying it back. The arts are weakness, because if I'm still worried, then I can continue to ask special help in this situation. That comes to mind. And then the other thing is the options from where we're looking at now might seem static, but then this is a dynamic world that's continuously being created. So according to what Dr. Yamina was saying, according to my intention and my prayerfulness and my surrender, the situation can be made to unfold. It oftentimes feels like this is A and this is B, and if I knew better, I would know which one is better and pick that one. But in reality, it's not necessarily so. A and B will unfold according to your intention, your prayerfulness, your seeking help, and then it's a lot of the things in life has this unpredictability in it. That verse at the end of Surah Luqman, Imam Nursi discusses it somewhere. It's in the book that was translated in the selections on Tawheed as well. And that, the 5 unknowns, it's known as 5 unknowns. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow and in what land you will die and so on. And so even if I relate to Tasnia's particular thing about like worrying about where to send your child, because I have had those especially when the child is younger, you feel like, I want the best for the child and I don't want his beautiful nature to be, tainted in any way or to be wasted in any way. I want the best for the child and so on. And yet, 2 people can go to the same school or even have the same teacher and the same, supposedly same environment. And then 2 kids in the same classroom, we all know they have different experiences, even if the teacher is equal to them and everything. So then I'm thinking for myself, the idea is to keep up that weakness, to be aware, as Dr. Yamina was saying, that awareness of my weakness, so that I keep up praying every time, any choice I'm making. Inshallah.
Sometimes Allah shows you, like, let's say, just to simplify, you send your child, there is school A, school B, and you say which one, and then you say, okay, Allah sends you something, and you decide for B. And then many years later, you say, oh, we always see it's always greener on the other side. Probably it was not the best. A should have been. And then the next day, you find another parent whose child went to A, and they have the same thoughts that they should have sent it to B. I've seen this a lot, as if Allah saying it's not about that. As Isra, you shared, it could be different children in the same school are having totally different experiences. And that's why we need to be always in a state of prayer and dua and asking for help. Just because I sent the child here, that's it. Now I made the decision is over. All is well. There is no such a thing. Even if it was, I could be sure this is by far the best. Still, I need to carry on making dua, because anything can happen anytime. Alhamdulillah. And if it were just this, if we didn't have a Rabb who was in control, it would be devastating. But Alhamdulillah, that someone is in charge, someone who is all powerful, all knowing, and all caring. And he's the one who is even giving me the desire for the best, for the easiest, for the most beautiful, who is giving us this need for perfection. So alhamdulillah, each time we are worried, as we remember, it's a time for making istighfar for our worry. And as we remember the all compassionate, the all knowing, the all powerful, feel the relief and the gratitude and the hamd, and renew our submission and our trust in him, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. Yeah, I think this is something that we keep coming back to, which I guess means it's something that we need to keep practicing. It is really hard. I mean, even after you learn about this technique or what you should do, it takes a while and I guess consistent practice to really like internalize that sort of being. Even there, I feel like I'm still, you know how we talked about the first step? I still find myself there when I think about this idea about control, because I feel like sometimes I use that I don't have any control, the reality of that, to justify some of what I do, because it's like, oh, well, I don't control it anyway. So I'm not gonna take any action, or I'm not gonna be cautious. So it's hard to balance. And I think that's something that keeps coming up, because there's a reality, like what Israbla was saying and Tasnia, right? You have to watch out for the well-being of your child. And like Dr. Yamina is saying, okay, the way you do it is by making sure that you're doing whatever you do with the intention and the awareness that it's not your choices or your ultimate decision that's going to protect your child or make sure your child doesn't turn out to be a terrible person or something. But still, I think the flip side of that is when I think, oh, well, there's no guarantee, I might as well just do anything, you know? Because look, people who send their kids to this school think that their kids are going to turn out really great, but there are plenty of kids who don't go there who turn out great, and there are plenty of kids who went there and didn't do that well. So why should I pay the extra tuition to send my kid there when it's not a guarantee? Or from my own like life, I feel like, oh, if there's no guarantee that, the way I approach this person or the way I talk about a subject with my brother will, affect him a certain way, I kind of feel that it makes me nonchalant sometimes. Like, well, there's no guarantee anyway, so why should I bother so much? So I think for me, at least, there's another test on that side of the.
That's when we're living from the ego. We always look at the result for itself. Otherwise, the result is from Allah. We are seeking the best result from Him, and we may still have an idea that it should be this, but we are open to let go of that, and maybe there is an even better result. So we trust Allah and we surrender. But we do. It doesn't mean that we don't take the steps, whatever we feel inspired or we feel is what needs to be done. Bismillah, we do it. but we don't make fuss about the result.
That's right.
But we're asking for the best result from Allah. But if it's me who is going to conjure the result, it becomes, even if I get the best result, it's not ibadah. I won't get the benefit, neither the barakah of it, neither in this life nor in akhirah. And let's say I may get even a good result, and then it may feed my ego even more. So everything is a test.
No pressure. Yeah. No, this is okay. I think this is a good way to sum it up. The right way to move then is to be process oriented rather than result oriented, right? Which is the opposite of what modern corporate culture teaches or encourages. It's only looking at results, not really looking at the process. Or even the saying, right? Like the ends justify the means. It means the result is what's ultimately important. So
Definitely, the end does not justify the means in Islam.
correct. So this is what I have to remind myself. Okay. So let's read the second step, inshallah. And we'll see where we go from there. Bismillah. Second step. As the verse, and be not like those who forget God, and he therefore makes them forget their own selves, teaches, man is oblivious of himself and is not aware of himself. If he thinks of death, it is in relation to others. If he sees transience and decline, he does not attribute them to himself. His evil commanding soul demands that when it comes to inconvenience and service of others, he forgets himself. But when it comes to receiving his recompense and to benefits and enjoyment, he thinks of himself and takes his own part fervently. His purification, cleansing, and training at this stage is the reverse of this state. That is to say, when oblivious to himself, it is not to be oblivious. That is to forget himself when it comes to pleasure and ambition and greed, and to think of himself when it comes to death and service of others. I relate to this a lot because I don't know. I just feel like for a long time, even now, it's like a struggle for me to volunteer to do things because I would rather other people do them. And I thought like, just like a practical example, even at home or at like the MSA when I was in university, I would dislike volunteering to clean up or set up or do all these like things because I was like, I just thought it was not for me. It's like below me or something, or astaghfirullah. I just enjoyed coming to the MSA iftar, which was already set up. I didn't want to be there an hour early and help set up the catering. And so, doing this stage or this second step, it's, I think, still something that I am working on because intellectually, I have now understood that it is a better place to be when you're in service of others. But, I feel like maybe still I'm doing it out of that sort of like intellectual conviction rather than I take a lot of pleasure in giving service or volunteering. But I don't know. So I feel like this one really speaks to me. even at home, like now that my brother is more grown up, it's so great because I grew up like an only child, and now he's like 15. So I love making him do things for me because I never had a younger sibling to like boss around. So even though I can get up and pour my own tea or get my own water, I just want him to do it for me. And he does it, which is very sweet, but um, yeah, it's probably feeding my ego to keep using him that way.
No, I think it helps them grow and to serve. It's very important for young people to serve. I believe in that fully. Sorry, it's just a side. But how interesting it hits me because that the second step is about taking responsibility, and we were just talking about surrender, and it seems it's at odds with doing your part and putting in effort, but it's not. It's so I used to think these two like steps seem a bit disconnected, but now I mean after we discussed this question that Tesnia raised, and it was very beneficial. And then the second step is be on the forefront, take responsibility, do your part. Interesting.
Yeah, but it's not the same kind of responsibility, I guess, right, Ms. Rabla? And then there's also the part of this that's about death. So
Yeah.
It means anything we dislike has nothing to do with us. Everything we like, there is greed. I want more of it.
right. Okay, so anyone else who wants to reflect on the second step before we go to Dr. Amina?
There's a question in the chat. Tesnia asks, is that why sometimes we burn out when we engage in community and doing service because we're operating from the ego?
It may also be that your masjid is disorganized. I'm just throwing. There's so many other, I don't know, things.
I think Tasnia has a point though, because I think part of this, what comes to me is when you're doing service from ego, then not receiving any thanks or not receiving the kind of thanks you want does lead to a sort of burnout because you don't feel appreciated because you're doing the service to get some sort of recognition, even if you don't say that's kind of what you feel, because people who burn out generally complain about, the work being thankless, nobody appreciating them, all the work being for nothing. Again, going back to the first step, right? Very result oriented. I did all this, I spent all this time, I put in all this effort, and what can I show for it, right? Nobody appreciates me, nobody says thanks to me, nothing in my masjid and my school and my community has changed because the way I'm gauging success for my effort is through those results. So I think that there's definitely something to that, Tasnia.
But there is always also, from my observation, in all the places I've been to, most of them is you have 1% of the community doing all the work most of the time, and 80% not showing up, only to reap the benefits. And when there is a discussion or something, they are the most critical. They shout the most, they demand the most. But actually, the people who help financially are the ones who clean, are the ones who, most of the time, not 100%, but you will have. And some people want to only come and boss around, but actually they don't help in meaningful ways. That shows also if it's the communities like this, it means as in individuals, we also have to look at ourselves. Are we being that way? Are we behaving that way? We should know where to. You don't contribute, then don't come and boss around or make demands or say we want this kind of thing or we don't want this kind of thing. It's your mosque, it's your community, it's your, then come and do something in it. I don't know if you have a similar observation, but I've seen this many times again. And there are some people who you don't even, if you don't pay attention, you don't even realize, but they are always coming quietly, cleaning, doing whatever they want, they can, and leaving quietly, mashallah. Their hisab, like their, is not with the community itself, but with their Rabb. So we have all our potentials that we can show, and we need to pause and which one do we want to be. The more we are like that ourselves, because we can't go around and change people, but we can change ourselves and make istighfar for the rest, because they represent potentials within us. And if we get annoyed, particularly, then for me, it's an opportunity to, if something annoys me, I know I have something related to it in myself that needs to be cleaned up.
That's right. I saw someone on mute. Was it Hannah?
So this is really about hypocrisy.
Second step is about hypocrisy.
I mean, isn't that hypocrisy? Not being true when we are acting hypocritically is because we are not true to ourselves. Full ayah actually says at the end, أولئك هم الفاسقون, I think.
This is which verse? 59:19.
سورة الحشر. ولا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم أولئك هم الفاسقون.
So since this looks to hypocrisy, which part of is it still the ajz and faksh that we're looking at here? As far as the names goes. So
We
then
are not recognizing our ajz and faqr. When we forget ourselves, we forget that we are ibad, that we are worshippers. It means we forget that we are being sustained, that we have needs and our needs are being taken care of, as if we exist on our own. That's why we can forget about our Rabb.
Right. If I think of death as something that happens to everyone else but me, there's this assumption that I am alive and healthy and functioning thanks to myself or thanks to some unspoken reality of the universe.
We don't even go that far. I am alive.
I'm alive, that's it. No thanks at all. Oh, that's right. Okay.
That's why small things in the Sharia are very important. For instance, well, small things. The Salat, for instance, the prayer, is very important. It's emphasized in the Quran. It's emphasized, the Prophet ﷺ emphasizes it, and especially praying on time. It shows another degree of submission, of surrender, of that is much more important than trying to change our life or better our life as Muslims, as worshippers, by learning more, getting more information. Before we get more information, let's apply what we know. We know we need to pray. And if we pray on time, we will experience the wisdom and the benefits of praying on time. Prayer becomes much lighter, much more pleasurable, enjoyable, and it becomes the time we meet with our Rabb, we express our gratitude to our Rabb, we renew our surrender, our allegiance to our Rabb, for instance. So, and small things like as we are drinking, use your right hand, say Bismillah. All these things are ways to train us for tarbiyah, for how are we going to surrender? How are we going to remember that God is with us, is our Rabb everywhere? These small things, the more we incorporate them into our life, the more whatever we know will start sinking in and making sense. And then we will be guided to what if we need to learn more. But if we keep just learning intellectually and not practicing, one of the practices is tafakkur. Tafakkur is the heart needs to sink these things in. And one way of tafakkur is as we are making the wudu, the washing before the ablution, before the prayer, with this consciousness, with this awareness, with this intention to submit, this intention, this choice, renewing our choice 5 times a day, at least like 2-3 times, even if we forget once or twice, renewing my choice to surrender to my Rabb. I am a abd. I am a worshipper. We are all worshippers, whether to God or to false gods. But I choose to worship and be grateful to the one who is sustaining me in life. What does it mean? I am aware and I remind myself again that I am being sustained. I am drinking, I'm eating. I don't know how I drink and how I eat. I don't know how I walk. I don't know how I see. So I need to take time to pause and reflect. And then when I am going to make ablution, make wudu or pray, there will be times to remember. That's why it's dhikr. Salat is dhikr. It is time for remembrance. But if we're remembering something that I have reflected on and contemplated and meditated on. So we need to do like the Sahaba, the companions of the prophets. They don't go on learning all kinds of things. They take few ayats from the Quran, go reflect, understand, practice, experience, live, and then they come for the next. And we can start with the salat more consciously, and it will change everything. But because we don't practice the basics, and then we want to, either we have questions that we keep asking in different ways, because intellectually we understood, but after a while we still have the same question because the heart is asking, but I am answering and satisfying the intellect. The heart needs to be satisfied. That's why it comes back again and again. We say, what am I doing? Why am I asking the same questions again? Hadn't I resolved this? Yes, but at the level of the intellect. But we need to give it the opportunity to be digested. And what is going to facilitate the digestion? One of them, for instance, there are many. One of them is the salat. Salat as a remembrance. When I'm standing, I have to remember I'm standing in the presence of God. I remember that when I am going to make wudu. It's a time to rejoice. It's a time to, I can write it on my phone, renewing my bay'ah to my allegiance to being a abd of my Rabb, a conscious abd. And life will change. And then we will be guided if I need more information, more knowledge. Knowledge is not bad, but if I never practice what I already know, then I will be only, as it says in the Quran, like loads and loads of knowledge. That's not what we want to do, inshallah. So these steps are practical steps, inshallah.
Sure. Okay. Let's read the third step. Maybe we can stop there. Bismillah. Third step. As the verse, whatever good happens to you is from God, but whatever evil befalls you is from yourself, teaches, the nature of the evil commanding soul demands that it always considered goodness to be from itself and becomes vain and conceited. Thus, in this step, a person sees only faults, defects, impotence, powerlessness, and poverty in himself, and understands that all his good qualities and perfections are bounties bestowed on him by the all-glorious Creator. He gives thanks instead of being conceited, and offers praise instead of boasting. According to the meaning of the verse, truly he succeeds who purifies it. His purification at this stage is to know his perfection, to lie in imperfection. His purification at this stage is to know his perfection, to lie in imperfection, his power in impotence, and his wealth in poverty.
That's the key. That's the only way we can find the source, our Rabb. And we can only rely on our Rabb. To the extent that I have the illusion that I have some perfection from myself, or some little power, or little wealth, or I can do things, to that extent, I am closing the doors of infinite power, infinite wealth, infinite perfection. And that's why when we are in crisis, the anxiety goes off and we just panic because we are not used to living in the presence of the all perfect, the all powerful. That needs to be nurtured to know. We don't deny it. We may even know, we are sure, but in our heart, we need to nurture this knowingness, this being sure about it, feeling it, remembering it. And we do that by feeling grateful. Grateful to what? In order to feel grateful, I need to appreciate that my needs are being taken care of. That's why the needs are the key. So I need to be aware of my needs, aware of my powerlessness, aware of my imperfection. And then I realize that someone is taking care of me. That's why it's not about me, it's about him. The moment I accept my reality, I become a conscious mirror to his beautiful names. And now I can be truly grateful, truly present with the flow of abundance, of blessings. And the more we cultivate this, the more when there is a situation, a danger, fear, anxiety, it doesn't last forever. It's supposed to last less and less and less if there is more presence with God and more trust in God. Then when fear comes, it reminds me to seek help. So that's key. And it's beautiful. Alhamdulillah. قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها.
I was having a conversation recently with someone, and I feel like maybe it's a bit relevant here, but so they live in a less safe neighborhood, but this person's a man, so he was saying that because he was coming home late, and he had to go through this one neighborhood, he was like on high alert, and he was watching like every movement, and he was trying to calculate like, oh, like, if this person starts following me, this is what I'm gonna do. If someone comes out of this alleyway, like this is how I'm gonna attack. And like as he was talking about this, I was like, what? Like, how can you live like this? In my mind, I was saying that. But to him, I was saying, oh, like, I'm sure you were reading, Ayat al-Kursi and like Falak and Nas as you went through this neighborhood. And he was like, honestly, no, I was just really hyper focused on how to protect myself. And I was like, yeah, but you're not going to be able to protect yourself, um, if something truly were to happen. Like that's not really something you can control for or plan for. So isn't it better to, of course, like you should be aware of your surroundings, but isn't it better to seek help from the creator of everything rather than thinking like how I can, left hook someone who approaches me?
Maybe seek help for moving away.
Yeah. And I was like reflecting on this exchange because it was so funny to me, like because for me, like, whenever I feel I don't know, unsafe or like whatever, something's like gonna happen, I never think like, oh, you know, I can do this and this and this, or what can I do? I'm just like, oh, let me just start reading my, surahs. And this might not always be like very sincere, but I feel like it's the best I can do because I can't, like, I don't know self-defense and I don't know what people are gonna come out with. Um, so that's the self-defense I know. And I was telling him maybe it's because he is a man. He has this notion that, he has some strength and he has some like health and vigor. So he's like, oh, I can fight like up to 5 people or something. And for me, because I've never been in a situation, like I've never been in a state where I ever felt that strong. That's just never something that I think about. Like if someone approaches me and asks for my wallet, I would be like, take it all, because I'm not gonna size up the person and be like, oh, I can do some moves and get
But
out of.
if you can run away, I will run away.
Yeah. So I was thinking this is a perfect example because um in like that helplessness or that knowledge of myself as being weak and unable to do anything in that scenario has helped me a little bit to understand that this is actually how it is for every aspect of my life. Obviously in some other aspects I think, oh, I know my stuff, but it's a representation of my entire reality because at the end of the day, whatever is coming my way, I don't know how to protect myself. Um, I can't protect myself. Um, like my um, brother was sick recently, and you can, wear a mask and you can stay away and all these things. But if you don't get sick from him, you might get it from somewhere else. So there's no guarantee that I'll be able to protect myself or make sure that I never go hungry or I never do this or that. So his power in his impotence, it's so true, or his wealth in his poverty, because I think right, God wants us to approach him with this honesty that when I'm in front of my sustainer, my creator, my protector, I'm not saying, hey, I can handle the first 3 guys. Can you take it from there? He wants me to be honest and say, look, I don't know from where danger can come. I don't know how vulnerable I am to get sick. I don't know, um, how thin of a line my life is on. So, like, all I can do is trust that you will take care of me as you have taken care of me. And that's also true, like, when we look at um, our lives, whenever someone approaches you to ask for something, I think you always feel more sympathetic if that person is like truly expressing a need rather than being kind of like impotent, if they're kind of like, yeah, I need help, but whatever, then you don't really feel inclined to help that person. But if they're coming and like begging you, oh, hey, can you help me with this? I really need it, then you're more likely to say, oh, okay, I'll help you because you're really in need. Um, so yeah, this is
Here it's even if you are good at self-defense and you say, I can protect myself quite well, it's to recognize that that is a blessing given to you. It's not from you.
Hmm.
Because there are things that we are created to do, to know, to understand, as potentially as human beings, people can build buildings, machines, all kinds of things. But the whole thing is, it's not from me. I am made. Otherwise, it's conceit, self-conceit, being self-conceited. Instead of that, instead of being conceited, offer praise instead of boasting. Offer thanks, offer praise to the one who is giving you that. And deep down, if we pause and stop, if life is not mine, how can anything that comes with life be mine? People who say, no, 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 it's mine. It's like thinking like a 3-4-year-old. How do I walk? How do I think? How do I see? How come the result of my thinking is from me? Even when it's like a new invention, it's not even thinking, it's being inspired. It comes through inspiration, through intuition, through your imagination. Definitely, it's not from us. We know if we are honest. So this is where, again, the key to all of them is tafakkur, reflection, and accepting our true nature, which is needs and powerlessness. Then everything else is clearly all good is from him and all bad is me blocking the good.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Mina. Okay, we'll stop here before the fourth step. So, any final comments before we close out for the night, inshallah? Okay. For those who joined later, just a reminder that on the Receiving Noor YouTube channel, you can find our latest Living the Quran video, which was this past Saturday, about Ubudiyah, Is It My Lifelong Career? And the previous sessions are also in the Living the Quran series at the DCA playlist. Okay, so we'll stop here. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Wa akhiru da'wahum anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Al-Fatiha ala rasulina salawat.